People fear what they do not understand, and hacking is no different. This fear leads to strange policy outcomes legally. In the United States, in the early 90s, when a lot of the laws were written around computer misuse, the sentencing guidelines and penalties were so harsh that you could get in more trouble by running a tool you downloaded than you would if you killed someone in your car while driving drunk. In 1963, the first use of the term hacker was seen in print in an MIT school publication, talking about hackers who were exploring the school's phone system. They were trying to understand and map out all the extensions, figure out how to place phone calls for free, and they were the early explorers of this sort of digital phone switching system. In 1984, Stephen Levy went to Silicon Valley and wrote a book called Hackers, and in it, he interviewed the early pioneers, the creators of the micro and mini computer revolution, the home computer revolution. And he was looking to see, are there certain organizing principles? Are there ethics? Is there something that connects this sort of homebrew club of people inventing the next generation of technology? Yes, there was. And he wrote down some of the points that he discovered. I'll just go through a couple of them. One of them that was access to information should be free. There shouldn't be gatekeepers or walled gardens preventing you from learning knowledge. And you can see this exemplified in things like the Internet Archive, Wikipedia, and even people spending a lot of their own time creating tutorials and uploading them to YouTube to share that knowledge. It's not necessary to go to a university and get a degree anymore to have a very complex and fulfilling education. That's thanks to computers. There's also an inherent mistrust of authority, of centralization. And the idea here is that nobody should be put in a position to control the computer network. You should focus more on decentralization. Now this has a benefit also for resiliency, but you can see this sort of mistrust. And it came about because the early computer manufacturers were very restrictive. Therefore, they were rebelling against that in their own creations. You should be judged on your hacking skills, not your age or your ethnicity, where you went to school or your job position, but on what you do, how you behave. Right? That is critical. It's what you do, not what you say. And there's a big belief that you can create art and beauty with computers. That computers can fundamentally change your life for the better. Right? They're a force for good in the world. And when you take these ideas together, you can sort of see an organizing principle for the creation of the early internet. But what's happening now is that politics are getting involved. The realization that not just job, but national competitiveness is tied up into how well you perform in the technology space. It can't maybe be so esoteric. It's getting to the point where internet problems are global problems, and they're going to require global solutions, which means governments working with each other. And that's a fundamental change from 10 years ago. And in this new world, who are going to be the advisors? Who will help try to explain what is and is not possible, not just as policymakers, but to civil society, to the reporters? And I argue that a lot of that is going to depend on security researchers, hackers, and academics. And let me tell you why. There's essentially 4 groups, maybe 5 groups out there. Governments, they're pursuing secrets through espionage. They want to see if other countries are behaving themselves. Are they lying to us? Are they stealing our secrets? Taking advantage of our technology in their companies? You have organized criminals who want to monetize. They want money. They don't want secrets. They want things that they convert into money quickly. Maybe in the old days it was credit card information, financial information. Then it was turning your computer in a botnet to mining Bitcoin. Now the focus is on ransomware. They want a risk-free way to make money. You have companies building the technology. Right? They're trying to make money, and they're trying to avoid government's regulations. You have protesters and organizers that are activists trying to draw attention to their cause. It could be anything. It could be save the whale. It could be protesting some injustice. And what they do is you're using technology to draw attention, to get eyeballs. Right? They're not interested in money. They're not interested in secrets. They're interested in attention. And finally, you have the computer hackers, researchers, and academics. And they're trying to figure out how things actually work. They're interested in knowledge. And they're not necessarily interested in making money. That would be the InfoSec professionals. And because of this, we get to understand what's really possible. If you think about it, who told us about the vulnerabilities in implantable insulin pumps? Well, that was hackers, Barnaby Jack. Who told us about vulnerabilities in ATM machines, in smart cars, in connected airplanes? Who told us which high security locks actually aren't high security? Access control systems, web apps, right? You name it, hackers have taken it apart and shown to the world what works and what doesn't. And it's not the governments that are doing that. And it's not the manufacturers that are doing that. It's security research and hackers. So now when you go and you buy a lock, you search online for that brand of a lock. You might find the tool organization in the Netherlands or a lock-picking club showing you how simple or how hard it is to defeat that lock. That's the benefit. Okay, so when you see that hackers are leading the way, they're giving us better information to have better policy discussions, get better outcomes. How do we foster this? This is going to be a competitive advantage for different countries. And we can see it happen in a couple of ways. I'll use some examples from the United States where I'm from. One is, because hacking is going to happen, the US Congress has tried to pass some laws and implement some rules to make it easier. And this is around critical infrastructure. So for example, in the US, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act of 2015, Section 1201, has an exemption for good faith research around voting technology and medical technology. It's critical to the foundation of democracy or medical. Now hackers are free to tear apart the devices, not fearing getting sued by the manufacturers, which would happen all the time previously. Now all of a sudden manufacturers are producing better products. The FDA is producing better regulations. Consumers know what to trust, what to buy. Right? Good outcomes all around. We also see governments embracing bug bounties. That has started with the United States Department of Defense, but it's spread to other governments and agencies. Right? Encouraging people to do the right thing. Give them an off-ramp to not necessarily have to go to a criminal organization to show off or make money. You can come and earn that money through your own work, through a professional bug bounty program. And finally, you can also earn recognition through competitions. Several countries do this very well. South Korea is fantastic at it. The United States pioneered the National Cyber Collegiate Defense Challenge. The NCCDC is a national competition to get universities to compete with each other, to hone and learn and get the best students out there, helping with our defense. You can see a corollary to this, though. In China, their new laws actually require researchers to turn over their vulnerabilities to the government first. And so I'm curious if this is actually going to work or if it's going to actually just drive down participation. Right? Why you're not building the bug or finding the bug or the vulnerability because you want to give it to the government. You're building it because you either want to give it to the company or you want to share it at a community, at a conference. And that might change the incentives. I want to leave you with my final concern. In this era of internet competition, the countries that have the closest insight, the most realistic view in how information operations, cognitive warfare operate, are going to have a competitive advantage. So for example, in the era of mutually assured destruction, think tanks, the military, politicians, everybody debated about the theory of deterrence. Right? There's very little that was classified, maybe the range of a missile. But besides that, everything about MAD could be debated in the open, transparently. Today, Very little about what's going on online through information operations can be spoken about publicly. It's almost all classified. And the stuff that is talked about publicly is old and stale, not terribly realistic. Right? We saw a little glimpse of this with the Snowden revelations, and things were much more sophisticated and complicated than we thought of in the public. And that enabled, just those revelations enabled a revolution in the way in which companies and politicians approached technology and approached public policy. And that was just a glimpse. So I want you to think about, how are you going to have your policymakers get informed insight into what is really possible? I'm going to argue that you're going to need to involve hackers, academics, and researchers more in policy, because they're the ones that are going to be able to tell you honestly what is and is not possible with the technology. And that is going to be key to your future competitiveness. Thank you. Have a good conference.